It's no longer news that 3 square meals a day have become a luxury for average Canadians who struggle to even get enough to go by for a day on end. Skipping occasional meals has become a norm for many families due to the rising grocery prices and has made it hard for families to adequately feed themselves. Even with help from food donations and other humanitarian services, so many families still maintain that the skyrocketing cost of living is more than they can handle. The grocery bills have doubled, and you find out you can only get half of what you could usually get. It's a direct relationship between how expensive things are and the quantity you can get. The more expensive, the less you get. It's a familiar story for various agencies dedicated to addressing food insecurity, with the head of Food Banks Canada saying many families with children are especially precarious as school-based food programs wind down. These are kids who are not getting a chance to thrive. And that has a long-term impact on the country. More agencies are bulking up activities and donations to help feed hungry children, but we wonder how long that would be sustainable. Leave your comments down below and don't forget to like and subscribe as we dive deeper. According to a new Ipsos poll done exclusively for Global News, 85% of respondents have stressed their income won't keep up with inflation. Most affected are families with kids. The rising cost of living has gone from being a fact of life or mild annoyance to the main source of financial anxiety. The majority of Canadian households, especially those with kids, are worried about feeding their families. Polling from Ipsos conducted earlier last month shows that 73% of families with kids are worried about putting food on the table. And as the Bank of Canada moves with the hikes in interest rates to cool rampant inflation, 80% of households with kids are worried they won't be able to adapt fast enough to cover expenses. There also seems to be a generational divide in their findings. Younger people and working-age Canadians are increasingly stressed about finances more than their parents and grandparents who lived through high inflationary periods of the 1980s. Younger Canadians are looking at a situation that they haven't seen in their lifetime. This is a unique period in Canadian history as there hasn't been any inflation this high in over 30 years. Personal finance expert Rubina Ahmed Haq says today's inflation woes are different from a crisis like the 2008 to 2009 financial crash or other recent economic downturns because the pain points are touching almost every item in the household basket. In other crises, sometimes there are certain things that get affected. You know, housing prices are out of control. Car prices are out of control. Grocery prices are ticking higher. In this case, it feels like everything is more expensive, she says. There's no reprieve, especially for young families. Kirsten Beardsley says about a third of people who rely on Canadian food banks are children, as many as up to 400,000 each month. The agency says food bank use is rising among single-parent families. We can't lose sight of the fact that kids don't get another childhood. They can't do this over. This is their one chance, and you need to make sure that we are giving everyone the opportunity they need to build the life they want. This summer, Food Banks Canada hopes to bump up the summer food packs it offers kids to 175,000, up 25,000 from last year and many times over the 700 inaugural packs of 2015. In Toronto, the head of the Daily Bread Food Bank also says requests for aid have spiked as inflation reached a nearly 4-decade high. Neil Hetherington says his agency is seeing roughly 160,000 client visits per month, up from about 120,000 per month in January. He says modeling the organization has done with CIBC predicts that the number would rise to 200,000 client visits per month in December. He says counterparts across the country tell him of similar spikes, with many reporting a 20 to 30% jump in demand. While many of these visitors have been on the margins for years, Hetherington says he's also seeing new faces who otherwise have never turned to food charities, pegging the surge to a confluence of soaring food prices and gas prices, housing costs, and ongoing labor uncertainty in some sectors. Among the organizations, so many families rely on the North Vancouver-based Backpack Buddies, which supplies weekend meals to kids who need help getting fed between the time school ends Friday afternoon and resumes Monday morning. The program expanded to summer months during the pandemic and will grow even more this summer, says co-executive director Emily Ann King. We kind of were hoping that the beginning of COVID in March of 2020 and those following 6 months would be the height of demand for services like ours, but we are seeing more demand today than we ever have, says King. She says they've added 500 more recipients in communities including Lower Similkameen, Salt Spring Island, and the village of Lytton, devastated by last year's wildfire. They expect to help about 2,100 kids a week this summer. Demand surges as the annual inflation rate rises faster than it has since 1983, with Statistics Canada announcing that the consumer index in May was up 7.7% compared to a year ago. That has many bracing for more interest hikes to control inflation. The Bank of Canada already raised its key target 3 times this year. As prices continue to rise, food policy expert Valerie Tarasuk of the University of Toronto says things will only get worse for 5.8 million Canadians believed to be food insecure, among them about 1.4 million children. While that pool may grow larger this year, we are more concerned about already suffering Canadians who will sink further unless income support programs increase in tandem with rising costs. You can see children excited to be at the food bank, shopping for the food that they need. They are thrilled to be with their parents shopping at a food bank, and it breaks your heart. It is wrong that this is happening in our country. We hope that our political leaders are feeling more and more pressure to rethink what they are doing at the bottom end. Don't forget to leave your comments, also like, subscribe and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching.